Well, here we go. Got a Sunday video for you guys, and I had to talk about it. We had to talk about Mobico stock because it has had a fantastic last month. In last month, the stock is up 35%, and particularly in the last 5 days, pretty strong 5 days with the stock going up 22%. So we're going to talk about Mobico, and first of all, I think it's good to take a step back in time just to kind of say how we've got into this position. Then we'll talk about the recent movements that are going on with Mobico, and then I'll talk about the longer term game plan with what I think about Mobico. So let's zoom out a little bit. So I am a shareholder in Mobico. I originally bought the dip in Mobico during the CV times. I looked at the dip and thought, oh, this one's been hit pretty hard. No surprise, because obviously during the CV times, everyone went, well, there's no chance everybody's going to travel during this time frame. But then eventually, as we kind of came out of the situation and people think, oh, maybe this isn't as bad as what we were thinking, we saw Mobico surge a big amount. You can see it up 171% from its lows. And sometimes I don't think people actually realise this, is that I've been in this stock for quite a significant amount of time. I was actually selling a good chunk of my position out in Mobico for 100+% returns during that time frame. Although what did happen is I did continue to own some shares from that time frame. Now, I didn't actually start buying back into the stock until I think maybe the back end of 2022, maybe 2023. However, since I did start buying back into the stock, it has continued to go on a pretty significant downtrend. And now we've gone all the way to 27p during that time frame. Obviously, up to 34p with a recent bounce. Now, when I first started buying this stock, I did not think the stock would continue to drop this much. There's been a lot of mismanagement during that time frame, and as well as that, what happened is when we thought people would go back to the first kind of 2 years, I would say this period here, is that there was the kind of the initial delay of like going back to work, people still being a bit cautious taking public transport. And that is what kind of happened in them 2 years. Then what I would say would happen in these 2 years is basically inflation went absolutely crazy, and Mobico were very slow to adapt to the inflationary pressures, and that hurt them massively. And then what I'd say overall in the last 4 years is also there's been a bit of mismanagement going on. So that's kind of how the stock ended up in this situation. The slow return to work, and then we had the inflation issues, and then overall just a lack of poor management over the business in the last 4 years. And overall, in my opinion, I do feel like the stock has now gone and did go way too low for the issues that are going on, and we'll speak about that. So what has happened is we have seen the CEO, the previous CEO over this time frame, has stepped down. No surprise there. I'd argue the case that the CEO probably should have gone a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. There was a lot of bad decisions during that time frame since he was hired in October 2022. The likes of the bringing back the dividend and then suspending the dividend, the lack of repricing some of these deals, reacting to the inflationary pressures as much. There was a lot of mistakes made by the management team in the last kind of 4 or 5 years, and the fact that the CEO has gone is a good thing in my opinion. And it's not nice to say that someone should lose a job, but in my opinion, they haven't done a good enough job in the last few years. This is in my opinion, is a decent company, and yeah, there's been some things that have hurt it, but it shouldn't have got in this position. And I think that's something that some people always forget about, because what I always see is that whenever I cover a stock like Mobico, is the first thing I always see is people just talk, so negatively about it because the stock is down. It's very easy to talk about a stock negatively down because it's down. There's never an actual kind of look and go, okay, what's going on with the business? What's going on with financials? What's happened previously? Where was the management previously? People are emotional over share prices, and then the most comments I see all the time is like, Mobico is a trash company because it's down. And it's like, well, is it? And I always go back to before the 2020 situation, and when previously the management was under Dean Finch before he went on to Persimmon. If you do look at Mobico before the CV situation, Mobico was actually a pretty good company. In fact, I'd even go far as saying like a really good company. You look at the share price previously under the previous management under Dean Finch, the share price performed absolutely amazing coming out of that 08 time period. And obviously lovely dividends returned to shareholders as well. And you look at financially, this company financially previously was growing really well. We were up to nearly 6% profit margins, and the company continued to increase profitability and revenue growth. Pretty well-run company. And in my opinion, if the management team has the ability to get to half where they were previously, where they're growing at okay rates, and they get even a 3% profit margin, when you run a 3% profit margin on someone like a Mobico right now, I think that's where the success story could potentially be with them. And you look right now, and before the CV situation, they were around about 2.6 billion in revenue. They're up to about 3 billion in revenue right now. I mean, if they get to a 3% profit margin, you're up to about 90 million in profitability, which a 90 million in profitability on a 211 million market cap would not take a lot for the stocks to do really well. Never mind if they're able to get to a 4 or 5% profit margin again. But that's my kind of thinking here with Mobico at the moment. Now, the recent plunge that has happened, so it's always been on a pretty big downtrend, but we had a big drop. So it lost half its value this year at one point, as you can see this drop here. This came off the recent sale of its American US school business for 608 million. Now, originally when this came out, I think I made videos on it. I said, I can't believe the stock has dropped this much. And in my opinion right now, like, Mobico shouldn't have dropped that much. Right now, Mobico should still be in the 60p range for me, in my opinion. And when this school bus sale came out and the stock dropped, I couldn't believe it because I thought, okay, I don't know. All these people that paid to kind of do this research on the business, and I don't know who was looking at it going, oh, that was a bad decision by Mobico. It was a brilliant decision. We've seen the last few years how Mobico struggled to turn the US school business into profitability. We've seen them struggle for growth as well. And one of the big things that we've always said about Mobico is balance sheet. The big issue is the balance sheet. And if they can raise cash to pay more debt down on the balance sheet, that's a win situation. And then for some reason, someone came, I don't know even who it was. I think there was one article out there that was expecting like £1 billion for this American school business. And I made videos on it before and I was saying, that ain't happening. They ain't getting £1 million for this business because it's crap. £1 billion is more than 5 times the market cap of Mobico. I don't know who was making those valuations up, but there were. And I said that it was about near where I actually predicted it to sell for. And I looked at it as a positive. I was like, we've got rid of one of the worst parts of the business. We're paying down the debt. And the stock dropped off it. I couldn't believe it. Now, funny enough, in the last few days, because the sale has gone through now, we've seen that the media outlets and articles out there are actually saying, oh, Mobico is rising now because of the sale of the US school business. It's like, hold on. A few months ago, you were all criticising it, and now they're all going in the headlines that it's rising because of the US. So which one is it? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, when we look at the completion of the sale, they got 273 million upfront for this American school bus business, which, once again, this was a complete sign to me of like how low Mobico has got, because the worst part of Mobico's business sold for 273 million. Well, if you look at the market cap of Mobico right now, it's 214 million market cap. So if you're telling me the worst part of the business has sold for more than the current market cap, that doesn't make sense. That is something broken there. That shouldn't be happening. So even right now, we should be looking at Mobico going, well, the worst case scenario, right, is that Mobico should be trading at 272 million market cap, because they sold the worst part of the business for that much. And we see here that they said that ample liquidity for debt for the next 24 months. And I've seen this quite a bit as well. I've seen so many people like talk about the balance sheet so negatively. And don't get me wrong, it's not a great balance sheet. It's not a great balance sheet. But I've seen people like, you would think at these levels that Mobico's at the threat of going bankrupt in like the next coming few days and weeks. But it's not. And we can see like, they're saying, look, we've even got enough cash for the next 2 years at the moment. It don't make sense. Like, yeah, it's not a great balance sheet, but the way that it's been thrown down, you'd think there's some risk of bankruptcy going on here. And no change to their operating profit guidance for 2025. So, yeah, straight away, as soon as this came out this week, I actually posted on the Patreon. You can see here on the Patreon, I post my live buys and sells. So if you want to see what I'm doing in real time, that's the place to be. So you can see here 4 days ago. So before the start of this week, before the share price went on its run, as it did here, and the stock was sitting in like the 28. I can't even remember what it was, 28p, 30p. I did buy some shares at the start of the week because I said, look, I've just done it for you guys to see. They've completed the school bus sale and they've got 50% more than the current market cap value for it, which is just absolutely crazy. And I didn't really want to buy any more Mobico because I'm quite well exposed. But I just went, you know what? This is just absolutely ridiculous how low it is. And I did increase my position by 20% after this press release did come out earlier this week. Now, you might see in this post here, I said, well, if that's for the worst part of the business, how much is the ALSA business worth? If that is the case. And that's the key thing, because overall, it feels like Mobico is just like pushed so down at the moment, but yet they've still been doing okay in the background. Like revenue, there's no issue with growth. Like the company's still growing 8% a year, which is obviously pretty good. You look at the adjusted operating profit, that grew 11%. We're up to 187 million from that point of view. If you look at the big issue, which obviously is the debt situation, that improves as well from 3 times to 2.8 times. Still not good enough, but there's a lot of numbers moving up in the right direction. And then just to zoom out again even more, free cash flow. Free cash flow went from 163 million up to 210 million as well going forward. It's all moving up in the right direction, isn't it? Like, it needs to be better, but you'd think the company's like, something's totally collapsing here. And the big thing as well at the moment as well is when you look at it, is that we saw the American school business sold off for 273 million. Well, the big gem in this at the moment is the ALSA, or the ALSA part of the business. That's still growing at 13.9%. And that adjusted operating profit is still growing 36% a year. And that went from 136 million to up to 186 million. A good chunk of the profit for the business is kind of coming from this part of the business here. Now, when you look at that part of the business here, this is the crown jewel of the business. This is the best part of the business. This is the bus services, the coach services that they run in like Europe, in like Spain and Morocco, I think it is. This part of the business has been the best part of the business for many years and has continued to perform absolutely amazing. And I always said to you, like, in my opinion, someone must be looking at Mobico and going, we're going to buy this part of the business and we can pay a premium for it. And then we just get rid of the rest of the businesses and we just continue with that part of the business, because that's absolutely fantastic. And the other thing as well is that the more that this grows, a bigger part of the business, that's only going to help the numbers improve. And that's kind of what we've seen at the moment. And that's an absolute gem in the business. And you look at that, the revenue is 1.3 billion there. You look at operating profit, 186 million. So you're looking at the share price right now, and someone just paid for the worst part of the business, 273 million for the worst part of the business. So the best part of the business, this ALSA part of the business, what are we going to pay for that? It's going to be more than 273 million part of the business, isn't it? I mean, in my opinion, you'd probably be putting a 5 times multiple on the adjusted operating profit, in my opinion, for that. So when you look at that 186 million, let's call it 1 billion-ish, maybe 800, 900 million-ish, I'd say, potentially. So I think really, if you wanted to get that part of the business, you're looking at 800 or 900 million-ish. And then you look at the Mobico part of it and you go 214 million. So it's like 4 times the current market cap. And even if you wanted to say, they lowballed it and they sold it for a bad valuation, 600 million. That's still nearly 3 times the market cap of the current business. And I think that's what you're looking at for that part of the business alone. I think that Mobico should be a 600 million market cap alone because of the ALSA part of the business. Now, you've got the North America business, which grew 8%, and the profit did go up in the right direction. A lot of that is because of the other part of the business, the WeDrive, I think, part of the business, which they've still got. They sold the American school business off, but they've still got the WeDrive kind of the business. The UK side of it, that grew 2%. That's been a bit of a poor area, and you can see the actual profit was down a lot, which is one of the key things that we need to see them improve. German Rail, that decreased, and also the profit decreased. They are currently trying to do negotiations to improve that at the moment, but I look at that and think, I don't know why they just don't dump them off, especially the Germany part of business. If I were them, I'd just dump it off and go, cancel the contract. I've listened to the conference call before, and they say, we don't want to cancel the contract because we think it'll damage our reputation. Our reputation, like, we don't get National Express in, because if it don't work out, they'll just cancel you and leave you, out in the open. And it's like, well, hold on, that's business. If you've got a contract and you're not willing to improve the contract so you actually make the contract better for both parties, it's business. You cancel it. And I don't agree with that. And maybe the new management team that comes in, maybe the CEO will be a bit more ruthless and go, nah, if you're not negotiating, that's it, we're done, we'll cancel it. And I think they should cancel it, because you knock that on the head, it's not generating any profit for you. The UK, maybe you see if that can improve slightly, because it was previously not a bad area for them. We'll see. But then you just keep the North America business and the ALSA business, and you run with it, and it'll do really well. And there's good signs here, to be fair, because when you do look at insider buying, there has been insider buying going on at the moment. So we did have an insider buy on the 30th of April that came from the COO, operating officer of the ALSA business, Francesco. In my opinion, he should have come the CEO, or should come the CEO. The only person that I think would be better for the job is, I believe, I can't remember if it was Stagecoach or First Group. One of them had a CEO, and he came in and he transformed the company, and they ended up getting taken over for a really good premium. He would potentially be a good appointment if he is available, and he wants to do another turnaround in the space. If not, my other choice would be to go for Francesco and say, look, you've done the ALSA business so well. Do you want to come run the main business? And to be fair, he bought inside the company as well, and he bought some good chunk, as you can see here, 80k and then another 18k, which makes sense, because if you were the COO of the ALSA business, you'd be looking at that part of the business there and you're going, look, I'm running this part of the business here, and look at the financials I'm doing. You guys just need to get a grip of this North America, UK and German rail side of the business, and we'll do really well here. So you kind of see why he's buying some shares in the business as well. The new chair came in, which was Phil White. Obviously, he was in the company previously when it was National Express, and now he's come back in as the chair again. He's bought the some more shares. That's a confident sign. I got to say, he did sound terrible on the last webcast, to be fair. I don't know if any of you guys did listen to the last webcast. So hopefully that improves a little bit. But you do look at when you were there and the progress that National Express did make, you would hope that potentially he can kind of get National Express back to the basics, Mobico back to the basics of where they were previously as well. And ultimately, you're left in a company here that, I think a few people are also getting caught on this net loss as well, and not realising there's just, there's one-time charges on there. That's not actually the net loss. And if they do hit the 2025 guide and get to a 52 million profit, and that revenue, obviously a bit of a decrease this year because of the revenue being taken out of the North American school bus business, but we should go back to growth after that. And obviously, 4 times earnings, and I told you before, realistically, that's with the weighing down of that poor German rail business. I think ultimately, you'd be looking at ALSA business and thinking, I'm surprised there's been no one sniffing around yet, because I really think someone will come in for that business there. And it's growing at good rates, it's highly profitable. I'm surprised no one's sniffing around and looking to buy that, because if they manage to get 273 million for the worst part of the business, what's that got to be worth? Someone's surely got to be tempted to throw at least a 500 million bid on that for that sort of business, isn't it? So I look at Mobico, and there's been issues. It's had a tough time with the inflationary issues during this time period. Quite a bit of mismanagement under the old CEO, but I don't think there's a good company under here, and I think if the right CEO comes in, they can make this a real success story. And it shows you how cheap it is when we look at that school bus business and how much that was sold for. It's got to be. It's worth more than this. And I don't know if it's the bankruptcy fears that may be taking all the people, but even that's not really a concern. It's an ugly balance sheet, don't get me wrong, but it's not even a concern as much at the moment. I think it's just gone way too low, and even with the stock up in the last 5 days, 22%. As I say to you guys, even right now, if we're under the market cap of what the American school business was sold for, it's still too cheap in my opinion. So I bought Mobico this week. I continue to hold, and in my opinion, it is still very much undervalued at the moment, and I would say it's certainly undervalued until we're pushing above in my opinion, we should at least be back up to a 60p range, at least. And I personally won't sell any shares until we do get to that point. And even from there, I'd be even tempted to hold some shares even longer than that, because that would be 400 million market cap. And like I said, I think realistically Mobico should be 708 million market cap because of that ALSA business. So we'll see what happens, but that's my current thoughts on Mobico at the moment. And hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. See you in a bit.